motherhood can feel rewarding in itself
Yeah,
too, but something for ourselves that's different.
definitely.
I've
And it's
found
okay
that.
to have those other things as well. You can love being a mom and you can love doing other things too, right? And,
Yeah.
I think part of that is that when we become a mom, we're this new identity. And then if we get to the point where we're like, okay, I'm going to go back, I want to see like, this is how I used to get into flow. This is what I used to enjoy. This is who I used to be. It doesn't always have the same kick to it anymore, right? Because
Mm,
we've adapted as we became a mom.
yeah.
So actually, there's the work is in figuring out who you are now
Mm,
alongside being a mom, because it may have shifted a little bit because
yeah.
of all the growth you've done as a mom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Hi there, conscious parents. Before we start today's episode, it's Carrie here, and I wanted to reach out to ask you guys for a quick favor. As a follower of our show, we would love for you to leave us a review. It can be just a few words, that's it, and it really goes a long way with us. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm so excited for you to hear today's message. Happy listening. Hi there, and welcome back to Heart Parents. I'm Carrie. I'm your friendly mama here, and I have an amazing guest for you guys. Mel Findlater here today, and she is a change maker mama too, who believes that as humans, we're designed to do things better than ourselves together with others. Through purpose, play, and community, she brings people together and creates the space for world changing magic to happen. She's a possibility coach and hosts the top 10 podcast Permission to Be, the podcast where women share stories about their big, audacious dreams. So, Mel, thank you so much for being here today. I feel so honored to have you with us.
Oh, it's lovely to have you
Yeah.
over on my podcast, which is Permission to Be Human, and
Yeah.
also to be here with you and enter it from the family angle. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of switch gears a little bit because you're a lot of the times you're on the mom side. So it's kind of fun to think about the kid perspective too this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I love this term, the audacious dream. I love that you use that and you use the change maker term, which is so awesome because I've been using that as well. I love that we overlap. And the audacious dream, I'd love to question you and think about what was your audacious dream when you were a child?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because I don't know if I thought about it in that way when I was a kid. But here's what I do know is that I always felt a little different as a kid, and like I was a 40-year-old in a 14-year-old body when I was that age. I wanted depth and I wanted to explore. So I think the biggest dream that I can think of, which goes back to teenage years, because honestly, my memory doesn't go much further than that, um, is I dreamt of traveling the world. I wanted to go to every single country in the world. And
Wow.
the reason was that I wanted to see what people did and who they were and what are these cultures that are different than mine. And I always had this curiosity around how people work and how we
Mm,
work together as in community. So while I wouldn't have used those exact words back then, I was just like,
yeah.
I want to travel the world. And that's shifted. I still have the dream of traveling. I love traveling now, but I don't need to go to every country.
Yeah.
I can explore people
Yeah.
every day
Yeah.
in the people I meet.
I love that so much. My husband and I kind of reassessed our goals and our audacious dreams right now for ourselves, and adventure is definitely our passion. And
Yeah.
we have lived so many adventures this year, just opening
Yeah.
up after COVID and everything. And so I completely understand that. I was just thinking of my audacious dream as a child. And it's really interesting because it overlaps with what my daughter's been asking to do. I couldn't
Oh.
choose just one thing. I was like, I want to be a ballerina. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a vet, all these little pieces. And my daughter is asking for all of those as well. So it's kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think one of the reasons it's hard to answer this question is that the question we actually ask kids is, what do you want to do when you grow up? Right? That's the question.
Mm.
And I actually try
Mm.
to avoid that with my kids now because it feels
Yeah.
like a really like there's a lot of pressure on that question. And like it's actually more about who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And I remember being asked, what do you want to do when I was in grade 4? So that's one of my few early memories that I still
Hmm.
have.
Yeah.
And I had to draw a picture of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I remember sitting there and going, don't say fire or don't say police person. Don't say police person.
Oh.
And then I drew. That's all I could think of. And then I was like crying because that's like
Oh.
this is not what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be, but
Oh.
I didn't know the answer. And I
Yeah.
felt like so much pressure to know that answer. I
Yeah.
probably would say I still feel that.
Yeah. Oh
Right? Like
man,
I don't know. I don't have a
yeah.
title, one title that defines what I'm doing or who I want to be, right?
Yes. And how can we
Um,
dream that when we're so young? How do we
yeah.
know what the world is going to look like? And
Exactly.
yeah.
But we still have dreams, right? The big audacious
Mhm.
dream could come from anything. Like it might just be like to make everybody happy is probably what my dream really was as a kid, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's the role I
Same.
seem to put myself into. So yeah.
Interesting. That was the same too. I used to always say my name was Carrie, caring for others and caring for those around me. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
lovely.
I get
Yeah.
that. Do you feel like you help to guide your kids toward their audacious dreams or help them to kind of understand or think about those or find a passion now as they're growing up?
Yeah, I think I do it. I don't think I use the same words with them as I do with adults. Like I don't say
Mm,
big audacious dream, but what I
sure.
do say is what is your like just things help them really figure out who they are. Like what
Hmm.
do you enjoy? And lately we've been looking a lot at like sensory needs and what they
Mm,
really enjoy that way. So like
yes.
my son is really very physical, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
very, and I've started to notice that as I've been learning more and more. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that that's actually his need, right?
Yeah.
So for his birthday, we put a climbing wall on his bedroom
Ooh.
wall. And we have this like indoor play structure that he can swing on and just like do monkey
Wow.
bars and do the opposite of what everybody tells you should do before bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, off you go. You got 10 minutes. Just get it
Yes.
out. Get it out of your
Yes.
system, right?
Yes.
So for him, yeah, like really helping him figure out what those are by us just experimenting with him and being like, oh, that's really interesting. You seem to really like doing this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And my daughter's this, very different child, but we would ask the same thing. So like really trying to tap into what are your what makes you feel good? What are your
Mm-hmm.
interests? She would say to the answer, what do you want to do? Because of course other people ask that question. She wants to be a scientist artist, which is beautiful. And
Yeah.
because she wants to somehow
Ooh.
use both of those things to change the world. That
Mhm.
is her big dream. And
Yeah.
she's like collected cardboard tubes and all sorts of recycled goods and is going to make a car that won't ruin the earth. Like
Mm.
that's the vision. And I have no doubt in my mind that one day, should she wish, she will continue down that path and do that. And it's okay if she changes her mind. Like that's totally
Yes.
fine too. But what
Yes.
a beautiful dream to tap into that early on. The question of what is a dream for a kid is a really funny one because I was literally just this morning speaking to our sitter who came to hang out with the kids today and
Yeah.
telling her about the podcast and we were talking about dreams. And I
Oh.
was like, or my daughter was like, well, I just dream we have to be asleep to dream. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the
Mm.
sitter's like, oh, but well, I daydream quite a lot. I was like, oh, those are two really interesting way of dreams. The
Yeah.
dream I'm talking about is more like a wish or like a belief that like
Mm.
thing you want to happen or be. And she's just, just looking at you. And it's interesting that that word actually isn't used very much with kids. Like, what's your dream? So
Yes.
it's made me think today, how could it be?
I love that piece of the puzzle that you're thinking about because I think with dreams in our house, it's often associated with a bad dream or
Mhm.
like, Mom, I had a bad dream. So I'm going to start actually using dream more often during the day when we're talking about
Yeah.
it. My son loves to talk about, so I talk about my own gifts, like, oh, Mom has a gift of being able to work with people and knowing myself. Those are my gifts that I'm drawn to. And so my son always goes around bouncing around like, my dream is or my gift is building, and I'm going to help the earth with something I'm building one day. So it sounds like our children need to get
Beautiful.
together to play
Yeah,
sometime. Too bad we don't live
clearly.
near each other. But yes,
That's
yes, they
brilliant.
it's great when we can foster these pieces of them when they already have little
Yeah.
pieces that are coming up and we're listening and we're not guiding them toward what we think they need or something that's missing from our past and our childhood that we want them
Yeah.
to go toward. So I love that.
Definitely. And just showing them through our own work and our and work, I mean,
Mhm.
in the broadest sense of the word, right? The
Yep.
work in our life,
Yep.
that like dreaming is fine. So the other thing my daughter said in that moment is like, "Oh, mama dreams a lot. She's got a lot of dreams." I was like, "Yeah, you're not wrong."
That's
Right? And
amazing.
she was
Yes.
just like pleased with that. She's like, "Yep, this is just factual."
Good.
Um, and the more I think we show them that it's good to dream and it's okay to change a dream and a
Hmm.
possibility. These are all the possibilities in the world and beyond what I can think of.
Yep.
Then, that just opens up doors for them to figure out what they want to do,
Yeah,
who they want to be.
I love
Yeah.
that. And yeah, you gave me some good ideas. I'm definitely thinking about instead of saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I have one of those
Mhm.
little signs on the first day of school, it says at the bottom,
Yeah.
what do you want to be? And we've gotten all sorts of things. My daughter used to always say a unicorn. So
Hmm.
I was like,
Hmm.
well, you never know, Lily, or to do that. You never know. One day that could be a version of something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very creative. Hi there, Changemaker moms and dads. It's Carrie here. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If there's any pieces of this episode that resonate with you, we would love for you to share it with a friend. A little helping hand goes a long way. We appreciate you tuning in, and here's more. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. So, I was going to ask you, so you have pieces with the nature based coaching when I was reading or chatting with you about some of the nature pieces that you do with families or people, individuals. Have you found, if you were describing it to moms, what would be some pieces maybe that you found could work for us in our situations or for working with our kids too? Is there anything that we could use with what you've seen with nature-based coaching?
Oh, there's so much out there. And I actually did an interview for my podcast this morning with Caitlin Carey all about this topic.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it's fresh in my mind, all the nature work. But
Yeah.
nature is, we are nature. We're not separate
Mhm.
from nature. We are part of it. And I think the more we can do to build that relationship back up, to recognize that we depend on nature. Nature depends on us because we are part of it.
Mm.
And in more specifically, like forest schools, nature schools, all those
Yeah.
things exist now and are expanding so much in the world because for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Our kids need to get outside and get their nervous systems calmed by
Mhm.
simply let them take their shoes off. Like I challenge you to let your kids go outside in their bare feet
Yeah.
and play, especially in your yard where it's relatively safe,
Yeah.
um, just let them feel that on their feet. And
Mhm.
you do the same, right? I
Yep.
almost never wear shoes around my house. And do I get step on something sometimes? Yeah, whatever. But it
Mhm.
it is grounding us to the earth.
Yeah.
So that's like a really simple thing that you can do, but
Mm.
a fun activity you can do with your kids just to get them involved. Because firstly, the research says that the main thing about nature is not so much about how much you're in it,
Mhm.
although is some research around 2 hours. They recommended a week. That's not even that much, right? To get the
Yeah.
benefits on your well-being.
Yeah.
But what they really talk about is how much you notice nature. So how much
Mm.
do we go outside and we start to notice what we're seeing and where we are and what we're within, right?
Yeah.
So a really, really simple way of doing that is send your kid out with a camera and
Mm.
say, send them on a scavenger hunt,
Mhm.
right? Take a picture
Yes.
of something in every color of the rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
You could do it with them. If you really don't have a moment. And actually, this is a great thing to do if you have like a safe space for them to go out on their own and you're like, I really
Yeah.
got to get this thing done. Send them 15 minutes by themselves. They'll love it, right? Depending on age
Great.
and appropriateness, of course. But it's great to do together and apart. And then you can compare what you've got. Maybe you put Caitlin on the earlier episode I was talking about had this idea of like, do you put them all together in one spot and look at them at the end of the year? And you get this
Mm.
like collection and collage of all
Yeah.
these photos, right?
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're helping your kids and yourself. And I do recommend you go out and do it, whether it's
Hmm.
with them or on your own.
Hmm.
But you're forcing yourself to notice something. So you're taking pictures of things that bring you joy
Right.
outside, right?
Right.
So like find that little snail or the caterpillar or like the veins in the leaves and notice the detail and how that makes you feel. And that's the simplest thing that you can do to make yourself feel good,
Yeah.
right? It's such a simple thing. Um, so
Mm.
that's a really good example of what you could do with your kids. Also, free play. I'm all for free play outdoors for kids. So have
Mhm.
some like planks of wood or like
Yeah.
old tires or, just really simple things that they can build things, move things around. This is how we get those dreams we just talked about with our kids
Yep.
who want to like build the car or build the thing that's going to go and change the world, right?
Mhm.
Because they realize they can build from the things around them and it allows them to build their creativity, allows them to build confidence in themselves and that they can handle the situations when they kind of reach the edge of risk and they're like, oh, can I do it? Right? It builds up that courage.
Mm. I
So
like that.
nature is like, it is there for all of us. It is
Yeah.
part of all of us, but it's also there for all of us. And honestly, just get out as much as you can and don't beat yourself up for, you know, like I didn't get out for an hour today or whatever.
Mhm.
Yes, get out as much as you can. If you're at the stage of being able to go out for, I have an app called 1000 hours outside, I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
called.
Yeah, we did
Amazing
that.
app. I'm following that, but I did it with the intention of if I don't reach 1000, it's okay.
Mhm.
It's more that I want to know how much I am actually getting outside.
Yeah.
So it's just to raise awareness this year for me and
Yeah.
not add the guilt. We have enough of that as moms,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't need any more
No.
guilt. So if someone's listening and being like, oh my gosh, like my kids,
Another
it's
thing.
summer and I'm trying to work and my kids have been on TV too much today and all that, and
Mhm.
I've just beaten yourself up. And
Yeah.
just flip that around. It's like, yes, they've been doing that.
Yeah.
And let's go outside for 5 minutes now.
Mhm.
That's enough. That will help their well-being and yours,
Yeah. You
right?
gotta
Or if
stay
you can do
grounded.
10 or 15 or an hour, whatever is can
Yeah.
actually fit in,
Yeah.
right? Me and
Mhm.
my kids this last couple of weeks, we're very lucky we live near a lake. Um,
Mm.
and it's been very easy in past years. We've been here 4 years now to feel like we have to go and have like the 4 hour stint at the beach, right? You
Yes.
got to pack up all the
Yep.
stuff, you got to do all the things, you got to bring all
Yes.
the things, etc. And we do that sometimes, and it's
Mhm.
super enjoyable. I've realized I like it better when we bring a friend along and then I have people to chat with
Oh
and the
my
kids
God.
kids to play with. But what we've actually been doing is saying, oh, it's like 4 o'clock. Most people are heading home. We're going to the beach and we're going there for like half an
Mm.
hour, maybe an hour maximum. And then we're coming
Mhm.
home. We're not even going to bring extra clothes. We're just going to get in the car wet. We're going to come home, make dinner and eat, right?
Yep.
Pardon me. And it's been great because I didn't think that was possible. I thought the transitions are hard and it would be like, a lot of
Mhm.
effort, but actually it's rejuvenating for all of us and we're all in a better mood for it. So,
Yes. It,
find one little thing that you can do to get outside. Little
yes.
being the operative word. Yeah.
Yes. When we don't have those expectations, it definitely goes along more smoothly and it's so
Yeah.
much more fun. I love that you mentioned noticing, like being in the right mindset. And that was a great tip for keeping kids to notice, to help them to notice, because you can tell them all you want, noticing, let's look at this. And oftentimes my son is maybe thinking of building something. But if I point out a bug doing something interesting, then he's definitely going to change his mindset. So I love that scavenger hunt idea. I think my kids would love
Yeah.
that too.
And you can change that in as many ways as you want. Like
Yeah.
find three things shaped like a circle, find, five triangles, five, whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Three
that's
green
great.
things. Like you can change it in so many ways.
Yes.
Or
And
just things that are enjoyable.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Right?
curious to see. We gave our kids little digital cameras because we don't have any devices or anything usually.
Yeah.
And they take a lot of pictures. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to print this off one day and maybe make a collage of some kind. But yeah, it's really
And you might
fun.
find they naturally do it. They
Yeah.
naturally find the nature. If they're outside, that's probably
Mm,
what they're taking pictures of.
yep.
Because it hasn't been kind of taken culturally out of them quite yet, right? When they're kids,
Mm-hmm.
they're just in awe of nature.
Yes.
And experiencing awe is one of the best things for our health. I think it's in the top two or something, like in terms
Mm-hmm.
of enabling your well-being. And nature is where we often do that. So
Yeah.
find spaces to be in awe.
Yes, and I oftentimes when we're hiking, my husband's he's thinking about the schedule. Like we have to get back, we have to eat lunch, all of these pieces, and he's the hurrying the kids along as we're hiking, whereas my kids are picking up the sticks, looking at, the animals on the logs and finding all the neat things along the way. So I often have to urge him like, "Okay, let's bring the lunches with us so that way if we get stuck, we can sit and eat and we don't have to rush back to the car or rush back to the house."
Yeah. Honestly, my biggest tip for parents is if you're going out in nature for more than 20 minutes, and even if it's 20 minutes,
Oh yeah.
bring snacks. Just
Oh
bring
yeah,
snacks.
definitely. Yeah, we
Everything will
always
be
have it.
fine if you just bring snacks. For yourself too. Don't forget snacks for you. Because I always forget snacks for me, right?
Yes.
We think of our kids. But
Yes.
honestly, like kids can last so long outside as long as they have
Oh yeah.
water and some sort of snack that they
And some
enjoy.
sunscreen. Sunscreen for sure.
Sunscreen, depending on the time of the year.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, do those things first and then allow yourself that space to be out there, not on a time
Hmm.
frame.
For
Or,
sure.
if you are in a time frame, maybe your husband could like put a little alarm on his phone so
That's
that he
true.
knows that he needs to turn around whenever it goes off, that you have to start heading
Mm-hmm.
back so that he can
Yep.
stop thinking about it. He doesn't have to hold it in his head
It's
anymore.
true. Yep.
That's what his phone's doing for him. And he doesn't have to look at it. He doesn't, it's just going to
Hmm.
beep at him in his pocket or wherever it might be.
That's a good
Or
idea.
on his, old school watch on his arm. That's okay too,
Sure.
right? But
Yep.
yeah,
We definitely, yeah, we enjoyed my son. We just went to Kauai recently and he wanted to spend the entire day at the beach. So we would have to pack everything with us. And I started to say, well, we could just go for, an hour at a time. We don't need to do the 6 hour chunks of being in the waves and just watching the wave crashing on the sand from underneath with the goggles. So we
yeah,
definitely have learned we can do the small chunks instead of the 6 hour day where we start to get a little
yeah.
sunburn around the eyes or
Or
such.
as well as, right?
Yeah, that's
Because they
true.
have different benefits to
Mm-hmm.
each of those things. You don't
Yeah.
have to do the 6 hour stints every single time. I've been there and I love those ones.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
they're hard on my brain efficiency mode, right?
Yes.
Which is both great and why we should do it and why I can't do it every day.
Sure. Yeah, a
Yeah.
solid week of it. It was like, okay, we need to kind of take breaks and go do some cultural pieces that mom's seeking as well and
Yeah.
Kauai.
Meeting your needs. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
get mom's needs. So I wanted to ask you, I love that you are helping adults to curate spaces. I recently was recording a podcast about curating spaces for kids, and I've worked with my kiddos to create little spaces that they have in their bedrooms and their closets. That's the only, we had an empty space in the closet and they like the cozy feeling. So
Mm.
I wanted to check with you what your ideas are for moms and dads and looking, I don't know. Also, I know you're talking about physical space as well as emotional spaces too. So I
Yeah.
wanted to check in with you about tips about maybe things that you may have had for your own childhood, for yourself, or maybe for moms and dads listening.
Yeah. I think you make a good point there. So to me, so I say I create or curate space. It is both of those things, right? So the
Mm.
physical one's the easy one to answer first. And I've learned more and more throughout the years, I've been leaning into the fact that I love designing spaces. I love to kind of figure out what's
Mm.
going to go in them. If you're watching on a video, you
Love
can see
it.
like my bookshelves are like color coded, because it just
Yeah.
makes me feel good, and they're, tilted at certain angles, and I'm not, anal about it or anything, but I love creating that space that is
Mm.
there, and makes me feel good. And I was recently at an event called the Do Lectures in Wales in the UK,
Mm.
and I was very generously gifted a course to design events, and I've been watching it recently, and they talk about the magic, how they you need to have the
Oh.
magic, and not only at events, but I think this is what we need in spaces as well. So how do you create the magic, that sense of awe, that sense of joy, that sense of wonder, that sense of whatever it is that you need in that space, right?
Mm.
So like my office, I have purposely set up to have plants everywhere, some of them real, some of them fake, depending on where they are in the room and whether I think I can keep them alive there. I have a spot over on my side here where I have a sign on the wall that says, "Oh, and breathe, dot, dot, dot." And it's like a little
Mm.
yoga nook over there if I want to do some stretching, and don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, like I don't do yoga very often, but it reminds me that I can go over there, lay on the floor, and just be for a moment in my day.
Mhm.
I have a balcony right outside where I have a hammock that lays there so that I can lay down in that sometimes and just look up at the sky. I have a bike right beside me so that when my brain stops functioning, it's because my body needs to move, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I don't have to go hard. I don't have to sweat. I just like will sit there and like listen to a podcast or something for 10 minutes and spin my legs a little bit. And, all of these things in a space are what creates they each have a purpose, right?
Mhm.
They remind me that I can have it. This is a pretty small space, I'd like to say too. Like it's not
Mm.
huge in here, but you can have all these things in a small space.
Yep.
So there's a physical space. Right now we're redesigning this little 13-foot bowler style trailer that we have.
Cute.
My daughter came along. She's so excited as well. I realized this is totally like she's inherited
Oh
this part
yeah.
of me. And we went to a fabric shop, and she got to help me choose which fabrics we're going to use for like just some decorative curtains, and we'll just do some like pillowcases in there as well. And she was so excited. She was literally shaking with excitement. And it was just beautiful to be able to share that moment with my daughter. And actually, I think kids naturally do enjoy doing that, and they'll have their own angle and
Mm.
twist on how they like to do that. But, involving them in the creation of space, right?
Mm.
We first moved from the UK back to Vancouver Island in March 2020. So like there wasn't anything else to do, right? And
Yeah.
I had basically left my business there. I wasn't doing it here. And me and my kids just designed their bedrooms,
Mhm.
right? And that's why, like, well, now we have like the climbing wall and climbing stuff for my boy, but we also like designed a bed and a tree house in his closet and like all these just
Mhm.
cool things that I was like, I wish I
Yeah.
had this as a kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, and my daughter's more into fairies, so we like made that all over her
Cute.
walls and this cool space in her closet. And
Yep.
so, spaces help define what energy we're going to have in that when we are in that space, right?
Yes.
And those
Yep.
little bits of magic really do matter,
Mhm.
like realtors often say, like, bake a loaf of bread or put some
Mhm.
cinnamon sticks in water on the stove because they bring about emotion,
Yep.
right? If you're showing your
Yep.
house. And we can do the same little tiny things in our own house to
It's
create the
true.
energy that we want.
Yeah.
So I love doing that mostly for myself at events that I run,
Mm.
in coaching sessions. It's the little things like I bring a little fold up thing that someone can sit on if we're going to sit on a log
Mm.
if they want it, right?
Mhm.
Because I live in a very wet place.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and green, but
Uh,
because of it, but it is wet. So it's like thinking of the little things there. And then the other side of it is the curating and creating space, as in space to be,
mhm.
right? And how can we as people step back and look and be like, okay, I need to take the space to feel heard. I need to feel like I belong. I need some space to simply be me. So that
Yes.
that trip I was just talking about, I went for 10 days to the UK by myself, no family, right? And it was incredible because it gave me space. It wasn't so much it gave me space away from my kids, which is what it will look like. And that, I mean, was the effect of it. It was
Yep.
more that it gave me space to breathe. It gave me space to not have that list of things going in my head every, like constantly and all the time, right? It gave me space to simply get on with my day and not worry about what we were going to eat next because I knew I could
Yep.
survive another little bit until I got something from the corner shop, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it just gave me space. So I encourage everybody to take that space not for themselves. And one of the things that um, the main thing I think I actually do for people through my coaching practice, through my podcast interviews, through all of the work that I do, the events and such, is create space. And I
Mm-hmm.
invite people to take space for themselves to grow and develop. And
Yes.
I invite you to think about, as moms, how can you create space for your kids where they're not running to the next activity, where they're just allowed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? The answer is multitude. There's so many answers to that, right? And each of us will have our own depending on what our life looks like. But I do encourage just think about how do we create space for ourselves and how do we create space for our kids physically and
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Yeah. That's where the creativity happens, right? When there's
Hmm.
nothing planned. That's when
Yeah.
it kicks in. And I think I read research once. You might have read it differently, so you'll have to correct me if you've heard it differently. I heard that I think it was the prefrontal cortex that's developing at fourth grade. That's when we see a huge decrease in the creativity that kids are bringing in to
Mm.
art or to school. And so trying to keep that creativity going for us, right? And giving
Yeah.
them, instead of going from activity to activity, is having them have downtime, having
Yeah.
them be outside without anything planned in that moment. Sometimes not even
Mhm.
play dates. Sometimes they're on their own and they just have with their brother or sister and have to figure out like what are we going to do with our time? Permission to be bored, I think is
Yes,
one of the terms.
definitely. Definitely
Yeah.
permission to be bored. My son says he's bored all the time. And his go-to is like, so can I play Mario Kart? And I was like, no,
Oh.
sweetie, it's okay to be bored. It is
Mhm.
okay to be bored. You'll figure it out. And then he's
Mhm.
just beautifully recently he's been quite scared to go in his room by himself. And he's beautifully started going upstairs into his
Mm.
room and playing on his thing and playing the music he wants because music is quite big in his life.
Yes.
He's quite into techno right now. Um,
Cute. That's
I
really
don't know
cute.
how, but and it gives him that space to build up that, he wouldn't do that if he wasn't bored. He would still think it was too scary
Mm.
to go by himself, right? So
Mhm.
giving them that space to be bored. And let's be clear, as adults, because our brains have changed, because our culture has gotten us into a
Sure.
certain way, blank space is intimidating for many of
Mm.
us. It's like, well, what
Yep.
do I do? How do I relax? Like, how do I choose the 10 million things that I want to do with this space that I have? Right. And
Mhm.
we can get all up in our heads. And
Yes.
it's much harder for us to simply be. And so my hack for that would be plan a little bit of it, right? Plan a little bit of it with flexibility that if you change your mind, you're allowed, right?
Okay.
So maybe the plan is like to go sit on the balcony for half an hour with your cup of coffee.
Mm.
Like that's
Yep.
the plan. But anything else you want to do, if you want to get up and go look at the garden over there, if you want to like, start singing a song, I don't know, whatever it is you
Yep.
decide you want to do, you are allowed to
You're allowed to
change
change.
the
Yep.
plan, right? If you
Yep.
start going out to go somewhere for a walk or whatever, and you just change directions, it's okay. Like allow that to
Yes.
happen. But the little bit of a plan might just be like a little hack to get you going,
Mhm.
because it's efficient. Or do you know, little ones for me is like, this is more of like a noticing nature type result, but I take
Mhm.
my dog for a walk every morning. I could just let her out in the backyard, But one, it
Mm-hmm.
stresses me because she'll probably start barking at the neighbors early in the morning. So I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to take her for a 10-minute walk, do the whole potty thing
Yep.
every morning. I could do that as a task. It is a task. I get to tick my box. It's done. And while I'm out there, I don't bring my phone and I look around and I
Yes.
allow myself to be and to notice and to just enjoy the fact that I'm walking down the street, right?
Yes. I had
And yeah,
So there was an intuitive person that, or coach that I was working with years ago, and she said, go outside and walk, but don't have a path in mind. Just when you're going to the corner, whatever direction you are guided toward, go that direction and just let yourself go. And it's a great way to train your intuition and hearing your
yeah.
heart and what you're drawn toward. And I loved it.
It's
Walking
possibly
without,
my
oh,
favorite thing to do, and it always has been. If we're walking,
yeah.
my husband will look at me if he sees like a random path, and he's like, "You're gonna go that way, aren't you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I am. I gotta know where it goes." Or if
Yeah,
you're like
what's
on a beach, I
there?
gotta go walk to the corner to see what's around the corner,
Yes.
but then there's another corner, and like when does it end? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. You gotta eventually go back home, but yeah, yeah, it's so fun
Yeah,
to take the new path, the path less traveled, or to see where it ventures toward. Yeah, it's definitely.
yeah,
And those times, that's when you can often hear great ideas too, is when you're not on your phone, when you're out walking and you're just walking and you've cleared your monkey mind, you're just
yeah.
hearing your footsteps. I feel like walking meditation has become so popular. I'm hearing so many
Mm.
people with it. It's been
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
I
yeah.
described skiing once to my grandmother, who was very spiritual when I was growing up. And I love the feeling of skiing and the swoosh, swoosh, and the
Mm.
sound of the wind and the feeling of the wind on your face as you're going fast, and the muscle movement and the sound of the wind in the trees, or when you feel snowflakes on your face. So I described all these pieces and the rhythm piece of the swooshing. She said, Carrie, you're meditating when you ski. Like, this is
Uh,
why it feels so good when you're done. Oh, I didn't. This was in 1995. I don't think there was active meditation at that time being discussed
yeah.
regularly. So it was really cool to hear those pieces.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's just
Yeah.
and another the term that would probably be used for it is just getting into flow and finding those
Yes.
places where you can get into that space of flow. It requires little thought, but just enough,
Mm-hmm.
just enough. It can't be nothing. It has to be a little bit of a challenge, but not over
Yes.
challenging and really yeah, just getting into that space of meditation essentially, but flow,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful space to be.
Yes, I've been thinking about that flow piece too and the passions we have as moms. And I feel like so many times we switch our gears when we become moms and we get into the mom flow, right? But it's
Mm,
hard to come back to a flow that we feel that's for ourselves, or something
yeah.
that flow that we can find that feels so rewarding. I mean,
And I would say just go out and like try new things. Try things
mhm,
that you maybe have never done before or you haven't done since you were 6 or
yep,
20 or whatever and just
yep,
see what you like.
yeah,
As hard as that first year when we moved here during COVID and everything was,
hmm,
I learned to use a whole bunch of power tools. I started doing
hmm.
scroll sawing, making signs. You can do such cool stuff with
Oh,
that.
cool.
I like just learned all these things. I learned how to sew,
Yeah.
and yeah, like I don't necessarily do all those things for a long time anymore, but they got me into my flow because
Hmm.
it was that learning of a new skill that was just hard enough, but not overly hard,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, so, what is it that you are craving trying? I have
Hmm.
a friend of mine, we've been going to like a few new things and we're like, what's the next one? And we're like, let's go do pickleball. I've always been curious about pickleball. Like I have no
Yeah.
idea like how it works and it's new and I don't understand it and that's kind of
Yes.
exciting, right?
Yes. Learning
So we're
something
gonna go
new.
play pickleball. So,
Yeah,
it's
great.
easier to do these things with other people too. So that's my other tip is go and like
Yeah.
find someone who also is like maybe either in a rut or just like they just want to try some new stuff. They want to build up that
Hmm.
courage muscle.
Yeah.
Go do it with them. Try it out.
Yeah, I love those. That's great. Trying it with somebody else. And we moved in 2020 as well. We moved into our new
Mm,
neighborhood and then we moved in from our rental into our house we were purchasing in 2021 and we couldn't buy furniture. So
wow.
COVID made us get creative. And so I
Yeah.
started buying like older furniture, solid wood pieces on Marketplace for very reasonable prices. And my husband was a woodworker, so he taught me how to sand it down and refinish it. And so that
Brilliant.
has continued 4 years later. My house is getting pretty full. I'm going to have to start finding some people that need
Yeah.
furniture because it's all
Yeah.
about the self care. It's not necessarily about the furniture anymore, but getting that
Yeah.
flow piece for mom.
Yeah. It becomes the process. Exactly.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
and it's that designing of space. It's designing something that you're like, oh wow, this is beautiful, right?
Yes.
You know, I was
Yes.
talking to my daughter who gets
Mm-hmm.
excited about that, and I said, so we had this business idea recently of having this indoor playground that we were going to
Oh,
build in our
cool.
local vicinity, and it's not going to look like that anymore. But while we were
Mm.
designing it, my daughter has like 10 pages worth of designs of what it's going to look like, and she's building it up.
Wow.
I said, what was it about that and about the trailer and redoing that like gets you excited? She's like, just being able to think of what we put in it. I was like, yeah. She's like, and making it real. Like
Okay.
those are the parts. So like the furniture is like
Mm.
that, right? Like you think about what new thing this can become and you
Mm-hmm.
make it happen. And then you prove to yourself that,
Yep.
oh, like I can make really beautiful things that
Yep.
are perfectly imperfect, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll have to look in your area. So we just started going to a year ago. There's a woodworking class that my kids are going to, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
beautiful. I wish they would expand. It comes from I don't remember where in Europe. I have to double check, but they're teaching character development with building and woodworking, and
Brilliant.
sounds like your daughter would love something like that. But they use little
Yeah.
hand planes and everything, so it's no power tools, and
Yeah.
it's been really cool to watch the kids create with
Brilliant.
their hands. But I'm having so much fun chatting with you. It's so hard to remember. I wanted to ask you, what is your superpower, Mel?
Oh, what is my superpower? I think the space thing is it, but
Mm,
in the way of like I'm not afraid of silence, right? I will chat to someone and I will just be like, yeah, okay, like what is it? What's the dream? Or what's the like where are you at? And sit there until they have an answer, right?
mm.
So really creating that space of belonging, I think is what it is, which we all need in the world.
Yep,
So I would say like I'm learning about myself every day, really, as we all do. And I
yep.
keep going back to this point that like that's what I do. And I actually have it written on my wall. So my I do an exercise with people that a coach taught me called core process, and you come up with your purpose in 2 to 3 words. And mine is risking love.
Mm.
And that really defines the risking is the adventure part. It's taking risk, it's trusting
Yeah,
intuition, all those things. And the love is community and belonging and people and them together is exactly what I think needs to happen in the world is more of is like is what I'm doing helping risk love. And on my wall over here, I've written just yesterday for myself as I was trying to answer this question, like, what is it I do? Who am I? Like, what's this thing
yes.
about? And I wrote, I create space to risk love. And I think that's what it is. That's the superpower, if you want to put it that way, right? It's space for people to be who they need to be and to
Yeah.
take that risk.
That's so beautifully said. I love it. And you're
Mm.
helping so many with this that we can all use that in our lives. So tell us, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so do go check out the podcast. It's called Permission to Be Human dash the podcast. Do write that in your search. Definitely on Spotify and Apple. You can also just go permissiontobehuman.ca and find me on there. It'll tell you all about the stuff I'm up to. Got a cool new project, I guess I could call it,
Mm,
totally like a freebie that you can. So because I work a lot with people with big audacious dreams, perhaps
yeah.
you're like, I have this dream, but I'm too nervous to like tell my friends because maybe they'll like question it or say something like wholeheartedly like trying to be nice, but they're like, oh, but ooh. And so you can send me basically a little voice memo with your dream, and I will send you as many as needed back and cheer you on. And it gives you that space
Wow.
to voice it is perfectly imperfectly,
I
essentially.
love that.
So you can head on over to permission-to-be-human.ca dash the dash dream dash haven for that one and
Okay.
check that out because I get so much out of listening to other people's dreams. Like you're giving
Mm-hmm.
me a gift as well.
Yeah.
And I would love, love, love for more and more people to send that over so that I can cheer you on and be that person who will always say yes and there's no buts coming out of my mouth.
I love that. I'm gonna go send my dreams in there as well because I love that support. That sounds so
Yeah,
wonderful.
please do. And of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can find
Yeah.
us on there as well. Just stick in permission to be human
Okay.
coaching on Instagram. But yeah,
Yes, I'll put that in the show notes for everyone as well.
amazing.
Thanks so much
Yeah.
for being here today, Mel.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you so much for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in, Changemakers. This is Carrie. And if you haven't done a review for us, 5 stars and a little few words about what you've enjoyed in our podcast episodes, we would really appreciate it. If you guys would like to ever message me, I would love any questions you have or any feedback at info@hearttoheartlife.com. We also have a brand new website, which we're super excited to share. It's hearttoheartlife.com. Thanks so much for tuning in and happy life, happy times, Changemaker families. Bye.